Hi class, so today we're going to be taking some information that we have already learned about with graphing inequalities, and we're just going to tie that into the information we're looking at with graphing. Now, I would love to say that we're all super organized and we have our notebooks, and if I just told you to flip back in your notebooks to inequalities, we'd find the information, but just in case, I'm going to remind you. Okay, so we're looking at, that's an R, graphing inequalities. Okay, and when we graph inequalities on the number line, right, we had rules about when to use an open circle and when to use a filled in circle, and when to shade to the right and when to shade to the left. We want those exact same rules today, except now we are going to be graphing on the coordinate plane. So instead of having a circle, we are going to have a line. Okay, where our rules are still the same. So instead of an open circle, we are now going to have an open line or a dashed line. And instead of having a closed circle, we are going to have a solid line. Okay, so those rules are still the same. We're just applying them to the coordinate plane. So if we have a greater than or a less than symbol, okay, we are going to use a dashed line. Right, a line that looks like this. If we have an or equal to, right, they have the solid line underneath, so we are going to use a solid line when we graph. Okay, if it is greater than or equal to, right, before that told us to shade to the right, but now we're on the coordinate plane, so we're going to shade above and less than or equal to is going to tell us to shade below. So if you need to pause this to give yourself a little bit of time to copy those down exactly how you want, that's fine. The rule is that these can Okay, so these have to be solved for y. And the good news is that all of ours are going to be solved for y, so it's not really a large issue. Just the thing to keep in mind is that if we see something in the future, this only works if we're solved for y. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these. Kind of back out my camera here a little bit so we have some more space. Okay, so let's say I want to graph y is greater than 1/2 x plus 4. We are going to graph this with the exact same graphing rules that we have been using, right? This looks exactly like y equals mx plus b. The only difference now is that instead of an equal sign, we have an inequality sign. However, the graphing rules aren't any different. So we are still just going to look at this and we are going to find M and we are going to find B, right? Remembering that our M is what is sitting directly in front of X and our B is what is sitting without the X. Right, we have one number with X and one number without. Okay, once we find those two pieces, we are then going to plot B. Now remember, B stands for our y-intercept, which means B has to go on the y-axis. Okay, so I'm going to go to 4 on my y-axis, just like we've been graphing. Okay, and then I'm going to look at my slope, which tells me rise over run. So now from this point, I'm going to rise 1 and run 2, right? Up 1 over 2. And I'm going to give myself a couple points here just because I'm not very good at drawing straight lines. You could make points going both directions. When you're doing this in Aleks, it will make a nice, neat, perfect straight line for you, so it won't be an issue. I'm just not super great at it. You could use the edge of a sheet of paper or something if you wanted to as well. Okay, so then once we're here, we now need to consider our inequality symbol. And we don't just want to draw a line through this, but now we want to consider those rules that we were talking about. So we're going to look at our symbol, right? This symbol here tells me that when I graph, I want to use a dashed line. Okay, so to make that dashed line, I'm going to draw here. Now on Aleks, there'll just be a button you can click and it will just make the line dashed for you. So again, you don't have to necessarily worry as much about that piece. Okay, then I'm going to look back at the symbol again, and this inequality symbol tells me that I want to shade above. Okay, so we sort of have the ground and we have the sky, right? If this is sort of a hill, this is the dirt, this is the sky. So the stuff above is the sky, and we're going to shade all of this stuff. Again, in Aleks, you'll just click a button and it will shade it all for you. So you don't have to worry too much about getting that all shaded pretty. It will shade it for you. So let's get another one. How about if we have y is less than or equal to negative 2x. So again, first thing we're going to do is we're going to find m, and we are going to find b. Okay, where m is always our number with the x. So the negative 2 is our m. Now, by myself, right, I don't see anything being added here. There's nothing being added. So if nothing is being added, right, this is just a plus 0. So our b here is really just 0. And we've talked about that before as well. So when I go to graph this, I'm going to start at 0. Again, on my y-axis, I'm going to 0. Now, my negative 2 is my rise over my run. And whenever we don't see this as a fraction, we force it to be a fraction by putting it over 1. We've now talked about that multiple days in multiple different situations. Okay, so from this point, I'm going to go down 2, right 1. Down 2, right 1. Again, I'm going to make a couple points because I can't make super nice, neat lines, but Aleks will do that for you. Okay, then I'm going to consider my inequality symbol. Okay, so my inequality symbol says less than or equal to. Okay, which is here and is here. So this is going to be a solid line. So now when I draw my line in here, I want just a normal looking line. Okay, and I'm going to shade this below, right? That less than or equal to is telling me to shade below. So again, if this is a hill, right, here is my dirt and here is my sky, right? I can't walk upside down with my feet on the ground like this and hang upside down, right? Gravity won't let me do this. I'd have to be standing on this side of it, right? That won't work. So here is my sky, here is my dirt. So the dirt is what's below, and that's what I'm going to shade. And again, you'll just click a button and it will shade it all for you. Okay, so I want to look at one last one with graphing here. Let's say we want to graph something like y is greater than 3. Okay, so we're going to find our m and we're going to find our b. Remember, m is always the number with the x. This 3 is not with the x. So that 3 is our b value. Okay, we don't see any numbers with an x. There are no x's. So when we go to graph this, we want to start at 3. Remember, B stands for the y-intercept, so I'm graphing it on the y-axis. I have a slope of 0, It's really weird to turn 0 into a fraction, but we said we could do it, and we've talked about that before. So I can still put that 0 over 1. So I am going to go up 0 and over 1. Now this one I don't need many points for because this is just a horizontal line. And I'll be okay sort of drawing over my line right there. If I check my little list that I made, right, my greater than symbol tells me that I want a dashed line. So I'm going to make this a dashed line. This line does continue. Okay, and this symbol also tells me that I want to shade above. So you have a few of these to practice in your assignment today. Again, it's in the Aleks program. It's underneath your assignments tab, and that will go into Power School. Have a great rest of the day.